Hello and welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic, where we've been asked to take a look at this puzzle, which is the New York Times Hard Puzzle, on Wednesday, 13th of March. And Bill, by email, has requested that we look at this. He's obviously been following the channel for a while, is very au fait with so-called Snyder notation, but he notes that for this puzzle it doesn't seem to be enough to get him through the puzzle. So he's asked us to take a look at it and see whether there's anything more elegant to do. Now, just a couple of notes before we start. When I say Snyder notation, those of you who aren't familiar with the channel will perhaps wonder what I mean. Well, this is notation that we've named after Thomas Snyder, the three-time world Sudoku champion, and he taught me this method many years ago. And the way it works is that we look at 3x3 blocks, like this central one here, and if we work out that a number can only go in two positions in the block, so let's look at sevens, for example, on this block. You see a 7 here and a 7 here. So we know that the 7 in this 3x3 block is locked into one of two positions. Now, where a number is locked into exactly two positions, we make little pencil marks. We don't make pencil marks for 3 positions, 4 positions. We certainly don't go about filling in all the possibilities for each square in the grid. Never, ever, ever do that. That is terrible, terrible Sudoku technique, and you'll miss so much lovely logic if you do that it's not true. So this is what we recommend. Now I'm just about to caveat myself now, because on the New York Times Hard Puzzle, sometimes Bill's absolutely right, this won't be enough. And that's because the New York Times Hard Puzzle, it doesn't require any really exotic techniques. It never requires, or to my knowledge, I've never seen it need a swordfish or an X-wing, but it does love its hidden triples. And so this is something that we'll have to look out for, and Snyder notation doesn't really help you spot a hidden triple. Now, what is a hidden triple? I'm probably not going to be able to just fish one out of the air, but for example, let's look at this bottom right 3x3. You can see we've got the numbers 3, 6 and 8 in the block already. Now this is interesting because it has quite a nice effect on row 8 of the grid, because obviously none of these 3 cells can take the numbers 3, 6 or 8. So we know that they've got to be appearing in one of the 5 open cells on the left here. But this cell also can't take a 3, 6 or an 8, because we have 6 and an 8 in column 1 and this 3 in the block. So we get to finding 3, 6, 8 in 4 cells. Now, unfortunately, I can't rule out, I don't think, a 6 and an 8 from these 4 cells. So we can't quite find the triple that I was looking for, but this is what I mean by a hidden triple. You can try Snyder notation as much as you like, it won't highlight this sort of thing, and you have to get used to trying to spot these things, especially in the New York Times Hard Puzzle. So that's enough of me rabbiting on. That was just an intro. Let's have a look at how we'd actually go about solving the puzzle. So 1 here, 1 here, 1 here and 1 here. So in this 3x3 block there is only one cell left that can take a 1, and that is there. This 2 here and this 2 here interact on the central 3x3 block. They force 2's into one of those 2 positions, and that means there's a 2 in one of those 2 positions in this top 3x3. 4's, we have a 4 here and a 4 here, so we know that the 4 in this 3x3 block is in one of these 2 positions, but we also have a 4 up here, look, so in fact the 4 must go there. And this 1, 5 is now quite powerful, because where can we place the numbers 1 and 5 in this 3x3? Well, we can no longer place them obviously in either of these 2 squares, and there are only 2 squares left therefore. Oops, no, I didn't want to do that. I want to make pencil marks for 1 and 5 into those 2 squares. That means these 2 squares must be the only remaining numbers, which are 2 and 3. And if we go over here, there's already a 3 in row 4, so this square cannot be a 3. That must be a 2. That means this is a 3. That interacts with the 2's here. Look, this is one of the nice things about recording this simple method. Once we know that, once we know this isn't the 2, we know that the 2 must go there. We don't even have to think about it any further. That is just forced by the logic that we're employing. 3 here and a 3 here, so one of these 2 squares must be a 3. Eights into one of these 2 squares. Sevens. 7, these 2 7s here. I don't know why I didn't spot that earlier, but obviously the 7s must go into one of those 2 squares. And now this 7 here means this one must be the 7. So that's a 7, that's a 2. That means we can pencil mark 7s over on the left-hand side. One of these 2 squares must be a 7. Can we do anything with the 2s? We can't see how to. 9s are interesting now, aren't they? This 9 and this 9 interact on this 3x3 block. That forces a 9 up into one of those 2 squares. So now we get 9s into one of these 2 positions. Okay, so what now? 6s. This 6 here and this 6 here, they interact on this block, look. It must be a 6 in one of these 2 squares. And that's nice because that means this square here must be a 6. And I can immediately see, I don't know if you're noticing as well, this 6 and 8 now has a very nice effect on row 2. We need to put a 6 and an 8 into row 2, but they can't go in either of these 2 squares. So we know that this is a 6 or an 8, and this is a 6 or an 8. Now, I would, if you want to notate those, I'm not averse to it. It's not strict Snyder notation, but it is powerful to spot so-called hidden pairs in rows. But as well as that, we know these 2 squares to complete the row must be 3 and 9, and there's a 3 here. So this is a 3, and this is a 9. Now, is that going to be useful? 9. Can't quite see how. Obviously, we can pencil mark 5s up there. Okay, right. So let's now let's try and use row 5 of the grid. We've obviously got a lot of digits already. We've got 6 digits already, so we know we're looking for 5, 6, and 7. Now, this square, therefore, can only be a 5 or a 7 because of this 6. I'm going to depart from Snyder notation just to illustrate this. 5 or 7. This square can be 5, 6, or 7. But now, and this is part of the, it's because I'm looking for it, basically. You know, I'm aware that this puzzle so often uses hidden triples. Now, have a look down column 9. You can see we've got 4 digits, but these digits here bear very little relationship to the digits over on the left-hand side in row 6. So the way my mind works is it's comparing constantly rows and columns. And when I slide down here and I look at this square and I slide across and see 3 different numbers, I know this square is restricted. I don't really know how until I think about it, but I can see that the numbers are different. Now in this instance, it's really nice in the way that they're different because this square can only be a 5 or a 6. And you can see immediately now, here we go, we've got our hidden triple. So there's 5, 6, and 7. Now that means the other numbers in this block must be 1, 8, and 9. And rather annoyingly, I can't see how to use that. But I can use the fact that there's a 7 here. So I know the 7 is in one of these 2 positions in this 3x3 block, because it can no longer be here or here. It couldn't ever be here because of the 7 here, but it can't be here anymore because I know that the numbers 5, 6, and 7 are a triple in these 3 squares. Nothing else can go in these squares. So that means this square here can't be a 7. Oh, no, can't be a 7. That is a 7. Okay, now what can we do with that? We can do a nice trick. This 5 now. Now this 5 is important because it interacts on this 3 by 3 block. Now it doesn't go so far as to allow us to make Snyder notation, but in our minds we should be noting the effect of this 5 on this block. It forces the 5 into one of these 3 positions, i.e. it forces the 5 into either row 5 or row 6 of the grid. We know the 5 in this 3 by 3 block will be in either row 5 or row 6. Now why does that matter? Well, it matters because in this 3 by 3 block the 5 is either in row 5 or row 6. So we haven't yet managed to put a 5 into row 4. Where can the 5 go in row 4? Well, we know it can't go in either of these 2 squares, and we've proved it can't go in this square, so there's only one square left it can go. In row 4, this is the only position that can take a 5, so I'm just going to delete the pencil marks. I was just showing you there, this must be a 5. Now that's not that nice. I can't use the 5 down here. You can see it locks the 5 into one of 3 positions, not 2. But this must be a 1, unwinding the earlier pencil marks. That allows us to pencil mark 1s into those 2 positions. And the 1 here and the 1 here means there's a 1 in one of these 2 squares, and in fact that's resolved by this 1 here. And this is good now, isn't it? Because now we've got 1, 1. Where can we put a 1 in this 3 by 3 block? Well, it can't go here because of this 1, so it can only go there. And again, we can immediately use our pencil marks. Now this is not a 1. I know this is the 1. The moment I place this 1, this is the 8 from the earlier pencil marks now, which means this is a 9. New York Times puzzle as usual. Once you've completed a number, i.e. you've located all of the instances of a number, it changes the font. That didn't half confuse me when I first saw it. So now we have 8 here and 8 here, so this square here must be an 8. Just to complete the row. Therefore this must be an 8. Only place an 8 can go in the top block. Pencil mark 8s into these 2 squares. And this 9, I haven't used this 9 yet. 9s into these 2 positions. 9s into one of these 2 positions. This can be 5 or 6. But I can't resolve that yet. 7. This square here, what's this then? This is a 5, just to complete the column. 5s therefore into one of those 2 squares. 4, 4, 5, 8, 9. This square here. Looking along row 9 of the grid, we need to put the numbers 4, 5, 8 and 9 in. Well, this square sees a 5, 8 and a 9 there, so this square can only be a 4. And is that useful? No. No. Pencil mark 4's there. So these 3 squares in some order are 2, 7 and 9. Can't add any additional pencil marks. And we need the numbers 5, 8 and 9 to complete this row. So this 9 here means there's a 9 in one of these 2 positions. So I still need to put a 9 into row 9 of the grid. Okay, so what now? Sorry about this. This is always irritating when you're the square here. Let's fill that in. That must be a 6. Is that going to give me the breakthrough? 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. 6 is into one of those two squares. 2, 7, 8 to complete column 3. This is a 2 or 8. This is 2 or 7. Bother. Squares. Now, I'm doing the trick I was doing earlier. Now, I'm going down rows and columns with my eyes, and I'm comparing. I'm looking for positions where there's a big juxtaposition or a big difference between the contents of rows and contents of columns where I'm scanning. Okay, right. This is very difficult today. Actually, this puzzle it's much harder than usual. But here you go. Let's have a look down column 1. You can see to complete the column we need the numbers 2, 3, 5, 7 and 9. Now look at this square. This square sees a 3 and a 5. So this square here is actually only a 2. Oh no, I've messed up the pencil marks again, sorry. This is only a 2, a 7 or a 9. Now, do you remember as we were going through over here and looking at this block, we identified that these two squares were also 2, 7 or 9. In fact, this one here can't be a 9, but just to illustrate the point now, if we look along row 8 of the grid, we have a 2, 7, 9, hidden triple again. And this one is really hard to see because it's so far apart. Now, maybe it won't be useful, but I'm expecting it to be useful. Let's just remove the 9 here. So we need the numbers 3, 4, 6 and 8, I think. So this square can't be a 3, 4 or a 6. So I think this square can only be an 8. Let's go for that. That means this must be an 8, unwinding our earlier pencil marks. This square here must be an 8 now because we have an 8 and an 8. So this is the only place an 8 can go. The moment I place the 8, I complete the 8s and I can put in the 9. So this square isn't a 9 now, and you can see that means there's only one position a 9 can go in row 8. We have a 2, 7 here, a 2, 7 here. So this square here is a 9. That means this is a 2 or a 7. 9 into one of these two squares. Can we go further than this? It feels like I ought to be able to. Yes, this must be a 9, just unwinding the earlier pencil marks. This must be a 5, therefore. Find this. Pencil mark 5's over on in this block. We need 2, 4, 6 and 7 in here. 2's are locked into one of the 2, 7. So this is a 2, 7 pair into these two squares. And this must be a 4, 6 pair, which doesn't match anything over that side, so that's annoying. But the 2, 7 here forces this not to be a 7. This must be the 7 into this square. We're left with, what's that, 2 and 3's complete this block. So this is the 2. Goodness me. I'm all fingers and thumbs this evening. This now must be a 2. Unwind the pencil marks, 2, 4 and 5. This therefore is the only position a 5 can go in this block. 5, 6 and 7 unwound again. Nothing clever here, just unwinding pencil marks. Done all the 7s, all the 2s all of a sudden. This square here must be a 3 by the looks of it. Now what do I need to complete this row? I need to put a 4 somewhere, don't I? So let's put the 4's in there. This square here now must be a 6, I think, which is going to resolve everything. So that is the puzzle. And I fully understand why this has been sent in. It is very, very difficult today, far harder than usual. So thank you very much for sending it in, because I think it was a very good example of what you need to look for in the New York Times in order to crack it open. Hopefully this is a 4, and there we go. So thank you for watching. If you enjoy the channel, please subscribe. We really appreciate that. Some of you may be in a position to sponsor us on Patreon as well. You can find the link in the description of the video, and that's even more appreciated. So thanks for watching again, and we'll be back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.